Today, the Lord invites us to know him in his suffering, but don't be dismayed. Looking at the life of Jesus and the Song of Songs, we will see how suffering can actually strengthen our faith and lead us into living in glory. So stay tuned. The maiden in the Song of Songs knows the Lord as the God of love and grace, as the God of power and victory. But to know God fully, he now reveals himself to her in chapter 5, verse 2, as the God of suffering. Using the imagery of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane and mirroring the events of Jesus going to the cross, we see how the maiden is in deep anguish and struggles to follow the Lord into this new revelation. We see how God reaches out to strengthen her, just as the angel strengthened Jesus at Gethsemane, enabling her to be obedient to him and to follow him. She suffers false accusation, rejection, and abandonment from those in authority as well as from other believers. She's beaten, bruised, stripped, and exposed, just as Jesus was. But worst of all, the presence of God has been lifted from her, even though she's been obedient to him, just as it did when Jesus suffered on the cross. Despite all this, the maiden holds on to who she knows her God is and to his love for her. She stands firm in his word and his promises despite her suffering. And just as the suffering of Jesus on the cross led him to glory, the maiden comes out of this trial in chapter 6, verse 10, radiant with the glory of God. Her faith is stronger and her love for God is even deeper than it was before the trial, so much so that the Lord is completely overwhelmed by her devotion. There are two sides to the cross. One is of victory, the other is of suffering. To know God completely means we need to embrace both. Whatever trials we face, God is there to strengthen us to get through them. It's important that we understand the enemy's strategy. He wants us to doubt in who God is, to doubt in his word, and to doubt in his promises. But by persevering in faith and holding on to God's truth in the face of opposition, even when we don't see any results or improvement, we too can come through our suffering stronger in faith, with a deeper love and devotion for the Lord and reflecting his glory. We glorify God in the victory, but we can also glorify him in persevering through suffering. Romans chapter 5, verses 2 to 5 reads, "We rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who's been given to us." This is just a summary video, but I shared a lot more practical application in the full message, which is available as a podcast on our church website, and I really encourage you to listen to it. Read Song of Songs from chapter 5, verse 2 to chapter 6, verse 10, which covers what we looked at today. I also encourage you to read Luke chapter 22, verses 41 to 44, as well as other parallel passages in the Gospels about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane and the events leading up to the crucifixion. Philippians chapter 2, verse 8, and Hebrews chapter 5, verses 7 and 8 show us that suffering was very much a part of Jesus' life and ministry. And Philippians 3, verse 10 shows us that if we really want to know God completely, we need to know him in his suffering. I hope this message has encouraged you to hold on to God and to his word despite the challenges you may be facing. May God strengthen you in your faith and deepen your fellowship with him as you follow the pathway to glory.